All right, we want to conform to the conventions of standard English, which means this is a grammar question. And a quick vertical scan, I see longer answers, pressure, a sit-in, lawmakers, activists. These are all nouns. I am going to guess this is going to be a modifier issue, which usually sets up a dependent clause, comma, and then the noun that, the clause before should be modifying. And the noun that the clause before should be modifying. Let's check. So on April 5th, 1977, Kitty Cohn and 150 other disability rights activists entered a San Francisco federal building. After pleading for years, to no effect, for the passage of key anti-discrimination legislation, so after, that's our subordinating conjunction up front, setting up a dependent clause right here with our comma, we'll have the noun. So who was pleading for years? Was it pressure? No, that pressure doesn't plead. A sit-in protest? A protest doesn't plead. Lawmakers? I doubt the lawmakers were pleading. I think the activists would have been pleading. The activists increased pressure on lawmakers by staging a sit-in protest until their demands were addressed. That's exactly it. This is a modifier issue, and we need to find the right noun that's being modified by the dependent clause before. Again, always look out for that dependent clause, comma, and then the underlined section. It's a good tip-off. Okay, conventions of standard English, conforming. This is a grammar question. And quick vertical scan, I see we have different forms of studying. Was studying, studies, present tense, will study, future. This is going to be a tense number kind of issue. Bonnie Barati of NASA's JPL studies data about Saturn's rings collected by the Cassini spacecraft when she made an interesting discovery. Okay, she made it in the past. So she doesn't studies now. And she of JPL has been studying data about Saturn's rings collected when she made. No, it would have been had been studying, not has been studying, not will study future. It's the past tense. She was studying, and she was doing it as a progressive action. So she was studying at that same time that she made, in the past tense, an interesting discovery. The tiny moods were embedded between Saturn and within Saturn's rings. We don't really need that part, though. D is the answer. Okay, this is going to be a grammar issue, and quick vertical scan, I see all kinds of verbs. Were smaller, are smarter, is smaller, not smarter. So it's plural, singular, past, present. We're going to figure out verb, tense, and number. Professional American football player Fred Cox invented one of the world's most popular toys. In the 1970s, he came up with the idea for the Nerf football. How cool! I love the Nerf football. Which was, so it's going to be, what's the subject for the verb? It's going to be a relative pronoun which refers to the football, the singular thing. So we need singular here, not plural. It's a singular football that he invented. So they were, that's not going to be right. They are, that's not going to be right. They were, that's not going to be right. The only singular answer here is D. It's going to be is, a smaller foam version. So in the 70s, he came up with the idea for the Nerf football, which is a smaller foam version of the harder and heavier regulation football. D is the answer. Okay, conforms to the conventions of standard English. It's a grammar question. Verbs, was suggesting, had suggested, suggest. So we've got past, present, perfect, continuous or progressive tense. Let's see which it is. So in 1950s, a man named Joseph McVicker was struggling, so we're in past tense, to keep his business afloat when his sister-in-law, Kay Zufall, advised him to repurpose the company's product, a non-toxic clay-like substance for removing soot from wallpaper, as a modeling putty for kids. So this is past tense, so it's probably not present. In addition, Zufall suggested selling the product under a child-friendly name, Play-Doh. Oh, cool, Play-Doh, right? Zufall doesn't suggest in the present tense when she advised him in the past tense. Had suggested, well, could it be perfect? No, I don't think so, because then I'd probably have to say had advised up here. That would suggest a parallel time frame or structure from had advised to had suggested, and that's not there. So I don't think it's going to be the perfect. Was suggesting, no, this is not an ongoing continuous action. So she just, boom, one time suggested, hey, make this stuff Play-Doh. And so it began. A is the right answer. Okay, we're conforming to the conventions of standard English. This is grammar. Quick vertical scan, bounds, bounds, bounds. Bounds helped, helping, that helped, to help. So I've got infinitive, looks like I have a participle, and what might be just a regular past tense finite construction. My guess is this is probably going to be finite, something that can be conjugated versus non-finite, which is the infinitive or a participle that cannot be conjugated. We seem to have a couple possible answers of each. Let's see what it is. So in 1966, Emmett Ashford became the first African-American umpire to a Major League Baseball game. His energetic gestures, announcing when a player had struck out, and his habit of barreling after a hit ball to see if it will land out of bounds, helped transform the traditionally solemn umpire role into a dynamic one. I think that's going to be it. So this announcing when is all a dependent clause all the way up to bounds. That's our dependent clause. So really, I could kind of, well, I mean, it's not parenthetical, but I could sort of take it out and say, his energetic gestures helped transform the traditionary solemn role into a dynamic one. He became past tense. His gestures helped past tense. This looks to be it. We need, I mean, it is overall, it's a main sentence, or this is part of my independent clause conjugation. So I need a finite verb, not the infinitive, which is non-finite, not comma helping, which is a participle, also non-finite, and not a relative clause here, right? I need the main conjugation. So bounds helped. A is the answer. Conforms to the conventions of standard English. This is a grammar question. And what do we have here? Let's take a quick vertical scan. I've got longer answers, researcher, Robert Lowe, researcher, domestication, the argument. These are all nouns. These are nouns with longer answers, which suggest this is a modifier issue. And if it's a modifier issue, I should be looking at a dependent clause, comma, and then I have to figure out which noun is correct that's next to the clause that's modifying it, which would be a correctly placed modifier. So let's take a look. Based on genetic evidence, archaeologists have generally agreed that reindeer domestication began in the 11th century. However, comma, since uncovering fragments of a 2,000-year-old reindeer training harness in northern Siberia, that's our dependent clause with a comma right there, comma, and then what noun? So, however, since uncovering fragments of reindeer, who or what uncovered fragments of reindeer harnesses? Researcher Robert Losey. I think that's going to be it. Let's just check the others. Researcher Robert Losey's apostrophe S. That's a very typical answer for a modifier wrong answer. It's not the argument. He is owning the argument, but it's not him. It's the argument. And an argument does not uncover fragments of reindeer training harnesses. Last time I checked, it doesn't. Domestication does not uncover fragments of reindeer harnesses. An argument, or the argument, does not uncover harnesses. Researcher Robert Losey, he would uncover reindeer harnesses. So since uncovering fragments of 2,000-year-old reindeer training harnesses in northern Siberia, comma, researcher Robert Losey has argued that domestication may have begun much earlier. That's the correct noun, Robert Losey. That's being modified by the dependent clause before it. A is the correct answer. Conforms to conventions of standard English. In other words, grammar question. Okay? You can also tell when they're at the 20s to 30 kind of number on the exam. Pretty much all grammar. So let's take a look. Quick vertical scan. I see Julian. I see longer answers. Julian in 35, Julian's apostrophe. and the alkaloid. These are nouns. They're longer. One of them is an apostrophe S, which are typical indicators or tip-offs that this is going to be a modifier question. And we're going to have to worry about the correct modifier that modifies the dependent clause that comes right before the open-ended section. So I have comma, underline, and I should have a dependent clause before it. Named, a past participle, looks like setting up my dependent clause. Let's quick read the whole thing. African-American Percy Julian was a scientist and entrepreneur whose work helped people around the world to see. Named in 1999 as one of the greatest achievements by U.S. chemists in the past 100 years, comma, blank. So what noun? What noun is named one of the greatest achievements? By the way, it's not a person because it's by a U.S. chemist. We're not looking for a person. We're looking for an achievement. So is Julian the achievement? No, that's not right. In 1935, Julian synthesized. No, this is not right. That's not even a noun there, so that doesn't represent an achievement, a noun. Julian's 1935 synthesis. So he possesses the synthesis of the alkaloid physostigmine, whatever it is. Yeah, that looks to be it. I think that's it. It's the synthesis that is the achievement. His synthesis of this special alkaloid. That is his achievement. This is going to be the right answer. Let's just check D for a second. The alkaloid, so the alkaloid itself is not an achievement, right? The alkaloid is not the achievement. His synthesis of the alkaloid is the achievement. C is the right noun we want to put in there that's being modified by the previous dependent clause. It's the achievement. That's the correct answer. K conforms standard English, grammar question, quick scan, longer answers. So that suggests maybe a modifier. Usually they'll begin with verbs because it's going to be noun, sorry. It's going to be a noun that's being modified by previous clause. Sumerians, drinking straws, Mesopotamia. These are all nouns. The use of, that's not a noun, but guess. So let's read it. Far from being modern inventions, that's our dependent clause, comma, very typical setup. Then we need the noun. That is far from being a modern invention. What is far from being a modern invention? Are Sumerians? No, that's not it. These people are not a modern invention or far from it. Drinking straws? Maybe, definitely, that could be. That's not a modern invention. And it could be an invention too. That's the important thing. The use of drinking straws. So the use of drinking straws is a modern invention? No, an invention is a thing. It's not the use of drinking straws by Sumerians. So far from being a modern invention, the use of drinking straws by Sumerians? No. And by the way, that's more typical. There are often answers here that are like there are, here is, there is. Those are not nouns. They are they are always wrong. The use of drinking straws is kind of the same thing. It's going to be wrong here. It's not the invention. Ancient Mesopotamia. So Mesopotamia itself is not an invention. It's going to be drinking straws. Far from being modern inventions, drinking straws were used by Sumerians in ancient Mesopotamia more than 5,000 years ago. That's it. B is the answer. Okay, we've got a grammar question. Let's take a quick vertical scan. Looks like we've got all kinds of different apostrophes. So this is going to be a possessives issue. And let's read. In Death Valley National Park's racetrack playa, a flat, dry lake bed. Okay, so that's what this racetrack playa is. It's the flat, dry lake bed. Are 162 rocks, some weighing less than a pound, but others almost 700 pounds, that move periodically from place to place, seemingly of their own volition. These are like the ghost rocks. Woo! Racetrack-like trails in the playa's sediment mark the rock's mysterious migration. So in the playa's sediment mark the rock's mysterious migration. So in the playa's sediment So playa owns the sediment or possesses the sediment. That's not it then. Okay. These could be possessive, but one is plural, singular, not sure which here. Okay. So in the playa's sediment, well, I could actually figure that out, right? Because the racetrack playa is a flat dry lake bed. It's singular. So probably we're looking for singular, the playa's sediment. Because otherwise, if it were plural, we'd have to have playa's sediments. So I think we can eliminate D from that. So playa's sediments marks the rocks, mysterious migration, no punctuation, or the rocks with the apostrophe. So the playa sediment marked the rocks, mysterious migration, like trails in the playa sediment mark the rocks, mysterious migration. So there are multiple rocks here. So in either case, B or C were plural, or S apostrophe, or rocks S. So that really doesn't help me. I need to know if it's possessive or not. So do the rocks possess the mysterious migration? Is it the migration of the rocks? Yes, it is. This is possessive. So I want C. I want the S apostrophe at the end of rocks, not the non-possessive, no punctuation. Correct answer here is C. It conforms to the conventions of standard English. In other words, it's a grammar question. So quick vertical scan, we see apostrophes everywhere. This is going to be a possessives issue. And we're going to have to figure out which is and is not possessive. Don't confuse the two. They sound alike. Cheng Dang and her colleagues at the University of Washington recently ran simulations to determine the extent to which individual snow grains' physical properties affect the amount of light reflecting off a snowy surface. Okay? So snow grains' physical properties affect. So the properties affect. The properties is the noun, and the verb, that's not going to be possessive. So I don't want that possession, and I don't want that apostrophe possession. A and C are out. I'm just going to need properties, plural, as the subject noun to affect the verb. And now I have to go back and figure out, well, is grains possessive, plural, or just plural? So it said to which individual snow, yet both are plural. Individual snow grains, physical properties. Okay, it's not that the individual, it's an individual singular. That doesn't make it individual. It's individual snow grains, plural. So each one of those multiple grains have physical properties, plural. So the grains' properties, the grains possess properties. That's why it's S apostrophe. So if it's grains, plural, it has to be properties, plural. This is possession. It's the properties of the grains. B is going to be the right answer here, not D. It's not the non-possession answer.